Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. This is our third session of the day. My name is Craig Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, including my hometown of Winthrop in the Winthrop Lakes region of Maine. We are here today to have a work session on an issue in my mind goes to the very foundation of the Republic. And I have read all of the testimony that was presented since the public hearing, which happened some time ago, just to remind myself of it all. And while reading that testimony, I was reminded of some of the actual testimony in front of us on the day. The reason why this bill is being worked today after such a long time was because I wanted to ensure that we had an appropriate history of how we got to this place where this bill is even before us. And so I heard a lot of testimony that made it clear that there is a misunderstanding of or a not knowledge of how we got to this place, why are agricultural workers and domestics and tipped workers excluded from all of the labor reforms that have happened in this country. And so we're gonna do something a little different today before we get the analysis presented, which you have seen. It's 187 pages long and counting from our great staff at OPLA, Mr. Langland. And today we also have with us Ms. Kristen Braun, who certainly did most of the research, if not all of the research for the bill analysis. We're going to begin with a presentation. I'm gonna ask all the participants who joined to turn their video off, turn off their microphones, please, as you join, since the only people who we are going to hear from or see are members of our staff and our committee, and any persons that at the leave of the chairs we ask to come and join us. But we're going to begin today with a history of agricultural work and certain labor in America. This is a nonpartisan presentation. It's historic in its nature. Representative Drinkwater should certainly enjoy it as an educator. We will ask questions of the presenter toward the end of his presentation. If there's something that comes up that you need clarity on in the slideshow, feel free to raise your hand and I will call on you if it's appropriate. But with that, I would like to ask Mr. Andy O'Brien to show his face, introduce himself. And
hi there.
I believe that you should be able to share your screen. Let me know if that function is up in front of you.
Yeah.
Great. So before you begin your slideshow, please introduce yourselves for people listening.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Andy O'Brien. I'm the communications director for the Maine AFL-CIO. And some of you may know me from when I served in the Maine legislature. I was a representative from Lincolnville and served on the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee. I have a background in history. I got my undergraduate degree in African-American history, and I later got a master's degree from University of Southern Maine in education. I taught for a little bit, and I write for a number of publications about mostly labor history, but also other aspects of Maine history. And so I wanted to talk today. Craig asked, Senator Hickman asked me to give this presentation because I gave one before to our AFL Randolph Institute, just sort of like tracing back labor history to the founding, to colonization and the founding of this country. Because, you know, we're talking about, this is about Black history, but it's also about, which is also the history of labor in this country. And the history of labor is also the history of colonization and the birth of capitalism. So I wanted to sort of tie all that together. And I have a lot of interesting stories from Maine history that I don't think a lot of people know. And so I wanted to start sort of with colonization. You know, we know that in 1492, Christopher Columbus landed in the Bahamas and he launched the conquest and colonization of America, which was extremely bloody. I mean, they kidnapped, enslaved, raped, plundered, tortured, mutilated, and murdered local indigenous people. And that set off the whole colonization of the Americas. And, when Columbus got there were 300,000 inhabitants of Hispaniola, 1492. And then you fast forward, there was only 500 left in 1548. So, just in the first 4 years alone, 2 years alone when Columbus was there, 100,000 indigenous people died, and half of them.
Point of order.
You have a question? Or is this-
Point of order to the chair.
What is your point of order, Senator Garin?
This does not seem to be a bipartisan presentation that I feel is appropriate.
Your point of order is heard. The chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is, I was looking for an analysis of the bill. I appreciate the history and the education that we're all, could use. But we're talking about the bill here today, and I'm not unsympathetic to the meaning behind this, but I don't think this is a proper place for this when we are considering a bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Your point of order is heard. As I said at the beginning, in the testimony before this committee, it was very clear to me that there was a misunderstanding of our history. And so this is a presentation that is a part of the work session on LD 1022. And the chair has made the request for Mr. O'Brien to give this history, which is history. It's not partisan history, it's just history, which will undergird the work that we do when we get to the 187 analysis that will be presented to us shortly after this presentation is completed.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a quick question, how long will his presentation be?
Traditionally when I gave it, it was really 45 minutes to an hour. It depends how much time everybody has. I could skip around a little bit, but I defer to the chair on that.
You may proceed, Mr. O'Brien.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, when Columbus came, he really opened it up to a lot of explorers coming to the Americas, and many of them were looking for the Northwest Passage. The first European that's recorded to come to Maine was actually an explorer named Giovanni de Verrazano. And it's an interesting story because he came up the eastern seaboard of the United States. At one point, he kidnapped a local indigenous person, but he got along very well with the Wampanoag people. They partied, they hung out. But then when he got to Maine, none of the local Wabanaki would let him ashore, and they would fire arrows at them when they tried to come ashore. And they would only trade with them with the use of a rope. So they traded for some of their steel and the European steel, and they traded back and forth, and then told them to go. And when they left, they all mooned them. So apparently they had dealt with Europeans before and had some bad experiences. This guy may be familiar. He's the Portuguese explorer Esteban Gomez, and he came to Maine in 1525, kidnapped 58 native men and women to sell into slavery back in Europe. And that's also like a big part of our history. Originally was a lot of the early Europeans tried to enslave indigenous people. And so, there was these colonial wars that happened after the English settled in the US. It lasted from 1675 to 1763. It was very brutal. They were just, it was just the founding of Maine was a very bloody endeavor. And in the early 1700s, wealthy land barons, known as the great proprietors, divided up the state into different parts, and they claimed vast tracts of what was then Indian land. And then they brought in Scotch-Irish from Northern Ireland to colonize mid-coast Maine to fight off indigenous tribes who were defending their territory from encroachment. And yeah, and so, I could send you these slides later, but there was basically, the English settlers won and were able to conquer the land. And I'll fast forward. So we were talking about sort of like the racist, like the discriminatory aspects of these New Deal legislation.
Point of order.
Senator Garen, what is your point of order?
Isn't it customary in this committee for people testifying on a bill to only testify for 3 minutes? 45 minutes seems extremely excessive to me.
Senator Garen, this is a work session and this is a presentation. This is not testimony for or against the bill.
Are we allowing any presentation from the farmers today?
It's not testimony for or against the bill. And we will see what time we have to continue forward. Many of the farmers that you are asking to hear from have presented testimony either in writing or in person or both. We're going to have this presentation, we're going to have the bill analysis, and then the committee is going to decide what it's going to do.
Again, I would protest, Senator, that this is a very partisan presentation.
It is not a partisan presentation. It is a presentation of the history of the United States of America. That is not a partisan issue.
From one person's view.
You've been heard, Senator.
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Representative Drinkwater.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like
Point of order.
thank you, sir. I would request a caucus at this time, sir.
What is your point of order?
Yes, I would request a caucus.
We will have a caucus when the presentation is complete.
Isn't it our right to caucus when asked?
We will have a caucus when the presentation is complete so that the person that has been invited to do the presentation can complete it.
This is highly irregular, sir. What we're hearing is a history on racism. We all agree racism has existed. We've made great strides.
Please defer. Will the
eliminating it.
representative please defer? Thank you. The chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I also would like to register my protest. I don't think this is proper for a work session. More proper, perhaps, for a presentation or a testimony if somebody gave the time. But this is supposed to be a work session where we debate the pros and cons of the particular bill. So I would like to register my protest, Mr. Chair.
Your protest has been registered. Mr. O'Brien, please proceed.
Senator Hickman, would you like me to skip ahead to the New Deal policy that we're debating in this committee?
I would like for you to present the slides that you have presented in a 25-minute framework and keep your remarks to the slides and no editorial so that we can see what it is we are talking about as we go forward and debate this bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would certainly be open to discussing, facts with any members of the committee. This has all been cited in many, many history books. So anyway, racism in America didn't really exist as we know it today until sort of they needed to justify racism they needed racism to justify slavery. And so, in the 1620s, white settlers discovered they could make a lot of money growing tobacco, but it was profitable. But it was only profitable if they forced people to grow it through slavery. They tried to use enslaved indigenous people, but found the labor unreliable. They tried to use indentured servants from Europe, but that created class conflicts in their home countries. And the servitude was only for 7 years. And so the servants would eventually become landowners in competition for planters. And finally, the colonists decided to kidnap people from Africa and force them into bondage to produce wealth for the colonies. And so Bacon's Rebellion really set off this, this peculiar institution, as they called it. So there was an insurrection of Black and white servants in Virginia. And And basically in the aftermath of this insurrection of both Black and white workers, they passed the Virginia Slave Codes of 1705, which basically enshrined slavery into law. White people were given the right to vote and the right to be on juries and serve militias and own property, and Blacks were not. In Maine, we had slavery. William Pepperell was a famous slaveholder, and in Kittery, and this is a receipt for one African woman consigned to him. White Mainers are also active in the transatlantic slave trade, building slave ships or sailing to Africa to pick up human cargo, which they traded for sugar in the West Indies. And that was sold to the rum distilleries in New England. Slaves were also purchased off the boat in York and Wells from ships traveling from slave markets in Boston and Portsmouth. So it's estimated there were between 500 and 600 slaves in colonial Maine. And, it was, you can read things in the old newspapers at the time, like ads about runaway slaves, like one in the Boston Post in 1748 described a young man who ran away from his master. His name was Pompey, and he had homestead, and they described sort of what he looked like. He was 14 years old. He was recaptured, and then you'd see another ad that said that he had run away again, and he had pot hooks on him, which was what they used to keep, basically discipline people who were ran away from slavery. And so textile manufacturing was Maine's largest industry for much of the 19th century. It relied on cheap cotton picked by enslaved people. And some Maine mills produced low quality Negro cloth for slave owners to clothe them. And so you can see in this ad for Continental Mills in Lewiston, the direct connection. This was an ad where they show, it's the enslaved person in the fields and in the mill. And it's important to note that the property of slaves in the South before the Civil War is about $3 billion, which is more than all the banks, factories, and railroads in North America in the North combined. And then the Three-Fifths Compromise in the Constitution allowed Southern states to count slaves as 3/5 the human being and allow them to boost their representation in Congress. And this will come and factor into the New Deal. So following the Civil War, they passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, which abolished slavery in the United States. It granted citizens to person born or naturalized in the US, including formerly enslaved people, and it granted African-American men the right to vote. But in 1877, the North pulled its troops out of the South and to end Reconstruction, and this reign of terror happened through the South, where they overthrew state governments and murdered and disenfranchised Black people. And from 1882 to 1968, there were 4,743 lynchings in the United States. And Congress is never able to pass an anti-lynching law. And there were free Black communities in Maine in the 19th century. They were founded by Revolutionary War vets. There was one in Warren called Peterborough and another one in Machias. The one in Peterborough was founded in the 1780s, and the wife, Sarah Peters, was enslaved in Waldoboro, and she met this. She sued for freedom because in 1788 there were a series of lawsuits against the Massachusetts government by enslaved people who found that slavery was not didn't comply with the Constitution, Massachusetts Constitution. So former enslaved people in Maine sued for their freedom. But it was a hard time living in a Black community as a Black farmer in Maine. They suffered a lot of discrimination and in work and stuff, and gradually those communities died out. Malaga Island is another example of a mixed race community. It was forcibly evicted by legislative decree in 1912 based on racist pseudoscientific views that they were degenerate and feeble-minded. And I think former Governor Paul LePage issued an apology for that a few years ago on behalf of the state. In 1919, after World War I, a lot of Black soldiers were coming home. Like 350,000 of them served. And they were newly emboldened to demand their basic rights. And there was also a great migration of Southern Blacks to northern cities. And there was a big backlash to that. They faced violence and lynchings, businesses and homes were burned. And one of the first incidents of the Red Summer of 1919 was the tar and feathering of 2 Black students at the University of Maine by a white mob. And there's actually a picture of it here, Samuel and Roger Courtney. Their father actually, incidentally, was a big civil rights leader and founder of the National Negro Business League with Booker T. Washington. I'm going to skip over some of this. This is sort of about labor issues. One of them I wanted to mention, because this came up in collective bargaining debate over farm workers in this committee, was Black workers were basically discriminated at and not allowed to join unions with white workers. And so whenever they tried to form unions, they often faced violence. And so this is an example of in Augusta at Togus, Black workers tried to form a union and they were attacked and beaten by a white mob. And they kidnapped the organizer and forced him to take the train out of town. So, this was an issue, and this is right before the New Deal and the National Labor Relations Act. So it was definitely on people's minds when they were voting on this. So just getting to the labor and civil rights policies of the New Deal, there was, as we know, like domestic workers and agricultural workers were exempted from the 1935 National Labor Relations Act. They were also excluded from the National Industrial Recovery Act, which provided money to local public relief project employments, and predominantly Black agriculture and domestic workers were excluded from that. They were also excluded from Social Security in the beginning, and they were excluded from the Fair Labor Standards Act, which we're talking about today. It excluded domestic workers and agriculture and tip workers. And so it only covered about 20% of all workers in the end because of that. So I think there's some debate over like what Congress was thinking at the time when they passed this. And, at the time, like Blacks in the South particularly, but in the North as well, they were the most disadvantaged major group in American society. And there's really no question about that. They couldn't vote in most cases. There were poll taxes and literacy tests in the South. And, in 1930, it was, the South is it was rural and impoverished, and over half the Blacks in the US lived in the South at the time. And they were concentrated in agriculture and domestic labor. And so, people think often that slavery ends with the end of the Civil War and the amendments, but really different forms of slavery continued after that. So, one writer described the situation in 1936 as slavery was too integral part of the social life of the South and too vital to the interests of certain classes to be suddenly eliminated by a mere constitutional amendment. It was necessary to find new ways of perpetuating the Negroes' enslavement. And so what they did was Southern landowners developed different ways to keep Black farm laborers under their control through sort of like economic duress and violence. And so the primary technique was the tenancy system, which usually involved Blacks living and farming on land owned by the white farmer, and they would pay the owner for rent. So white landowners kept Black tenant farmers and wage laborers economically subservient by keeping them in a constant state of debt. Farm owners they also gave them their farm workers supplies like seed, fertilizer, and tools from the plantation stores on credit. And so by inflating the prices of supplies and charging exorbitant interest rates on loans, farm owners guaranteed that their tenants were permanently in debt to them. And this is also backed by threats of violence, and landlords require their tenants to pay off such debts before they could leave the farm. So they're basically stuck in debt peonage, basically. And and it was eventually repealed by the Supreme Court, but they also had other practices to keep Black workers there on the farm, if they failed to pay for their crops or, all that kind of stuff. So when they were debating, some of these New Deal policies, what they would do is the Southern Democrats had so much power back then. They had the majority of leadership positions in every New Deal Congress. And because Southern Democrats held the balance of power, Congress and President Roosevelt had to acquiesce in their demands to ensure the passage of the legislation. And FDR was willing to compromise with them. And so what FDR said to those Southern Democrats is, first things come first. I can't alienate certain votes. I need for measures that are more important at the moment by pushing any measures that would entail a fight. And so, he said it's not the purpose of the administration to impair Southern industry by refusing to recognize certain traditional differentials. The differentials in that case was race. And so they did this through race neutral language. Rather than say we're going to exclude Black workers from all of these laws like unemployment insurance and Social Security and collective bargaining rights and wage and hour laws, we're just going to say agricultural and domestic workers. And that satisfied the Southern Democrats. And for Northern liberals, they would agree to that because they wouldn't directly alienate their Black voters. And so since most Southern Blacks were employed as agriculture and domestic laborers, the occupational classification became ostensibly a way to exclude them from these laws. And so, the Fair Labor Standards Act, like I said, it excluded those workers. And originally, it excluded them explicitly. But you can read the remarks of the Southern senators and representatives at the time, like Senator Cotton Ed Smith from South Carolina. He complained about the deterioration of American civilization, and he perceived for the introduction of Blacks into political society as a result of Reconstruction amendments. And so he said, every senator present knows that the anti-lynching bill is introduced for no other reason in the world than a desire to get the votes of a certain race in this country. Anti-lynching, 2/3 rule, and last of all, this is unconscionable. I shall not attempt to use the proper adjective to designate, in my opinion, this bill, the Fair Labor Standards Act. Any man on this floor who has sense enough to read the English language knows that the main object of this bill is by human legislation to overcome the splendid gifts of God to the South. So basically what he was saying is that, God's gift to the South included the partial enslavement of Black workers there. And then the other thing, there's just one more quote I wanted to read you was from Representative J. Mark Wilcox of Florida, where he said, there is another matter of great importance in the South, and that is the problem of our Negro labor. There's always been a difference in the wage scale of white and colored labor. So long as Florida people are permitted to handle the latter, this delicate and perplexing problem can be adjusted. But the federal government knows no color line, and necessity, it cannot make any distinction between the races. We may rest assured, therefore, that it will prescribe the same wage for the Negro that it prescribes to the white man. Those of us who know the true situation know that it will not work in the South. You cannot put the Negro and the white man on the same basis and get away with it. Not only would such a situation result in grave social and racial conflicts, but it would also result in throwing the Negro out of employment and in making him a public charge. There is just not any sense in intensifying this racial problem in the South, and this bill cannot help but produce such a result. So, that's just sort of a summary of some of the debate that was going on at the time over this bill. And so, between this and between redlining, which was a policy where they didn't ensure, through the Federal Housing Act, they wouldn't insure Black homes in certain neighborhoods because they thought it would bring down property values and stuff like that, which was not true. It really kept Black workers from accumulating wealth and being able to pass that on to future generations. So I could go on and on, but I'll leave it there. And actually, there's one other thing I just wanted to share on the New Deal legislation. This is a seller's legal description of a deed of a house in Augusta showing explicit housing discrimination towards African Americans. It's understood and agreed that said lot shall never be occupied by a colored person. And that's right next to the State House. And that was backed up by New Deal policies.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for your presentation. You may please stop sharing your screen.
Yes. Stop sharing.
Thank you. Does any member of the committee have any questions for Mr. O'Brien today? Seeing none. Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater.
Well, I must say that you shortened it, and I really appreciate that, only because it's been a long day for all of us.
I get it. I totally get it.
And I understand what you're trying to say. I totally get it. In fact, I still see racism today. In fact, last night on NBC News, I saw on the news the Jews getting beat up by the Palestinians and vice versa in New York. Yes, sir.
I asked you if you have a question for Mr. O'Brien. Do you have a question for Mr. O'Brien?
I will get to it, sir.
Can you please get to it? Because we would like the bill to also have the analysis presented. So what is your question for Mr. O'Brien?
The question is, do we still experience racism?
Do we, as in you and I?
No.
Okay.
Americans.
Well, I mean, I think that you would have to talk to historically marginalized people. I mean, I sort of went through the whole history of it. I was talking about in the beginning, like, going all the way back to 1492, right? And then that seems like a long time ago, right? It's not a long time in the arc of human history. I mean, how long have humans been around? And this stuff carries through, through the ages. And so I got to the New Deal, but a lot of these discriminatory policies were around in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And so it's a long process. And so I think we have short memories because we just see it as, through our own little narrow focus. But if you talk to other people, they can tell you that they experienced this legacy of slavery.
Chair recognizes Representative Morris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Relating this back to the bill, do you have any history of Maine agricultural labor as it relates to this issue?
Well, it was, I was actually looking more at the issue of like the collective bargaining rights bill. I don't know if you want to talk about that as far as Maine farms, but just specifically on the wage and hour law. I didn't find too much debate about this because, Maine was a solid Republican state for a long time, and Republicans opposed the New Deal just in general. The debate really was within the Democratic Party.
Chair recognizes Representative Wader.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much, Mr. O'Brien, for being here. To Representative Drinkwater's question, we've heard a lot about the wage gap in the country between white workers and Black and brown workers, women, et cetera, and so on. Would you then say a wage gap and those sorts of wage inequities are racist and would be an example of continuing modern racism?
Mr. O'Brien, you could answer the question.
Oh, were you asking me? I thought you were asking Gary Drinkwater. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So to Representative Drinkwater, I apologize, Representative, to his question about whether or not we're experiencing racism currently in America. We know the data on wage gap between white workers and Black, brown workers and women workers. Would you say then that wage gap is a piece of evidence pointing towards racism being present in modern American society?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just this fact that people were unable to accumulate wealth through home ownership and through membership in unions and through all this in history, if you grow up in a poor household, poverty impacts, how you accumulate knowledge, how you learn in schools, and if you have money to go to college. And so that's obviously going to affect your wages. We're still not beyond this. We haven't fixed a lot of our policies around this, and we're still dealing with a lot of this legacy of racism and slavery.
Chair recognizes Representative Warren.
Thank you for your presentation. Towards the start of it, you discuss a little bit around, I guess, the history of imperialism, colonialism, these things. So I know at different points during this session, there have been different colleagues of mine in this committee who have discussed issues of offshoring jobs. And I'm just wondering about if you could tie those elements, I think, of colonialism, imperialism. I think about work I've done in Israel and Palestine, for example. I think all of this stuff is very prescient.
Mr. Chair, is there a question involved in this?
Sure. Yes, I want to draw the connection to, I think, actually a point that you made, Representative Drinkwater, around how racism kind of exists to its modern form. And if you could tie those pieces towards the start of your presentation, if you'd say that wage laws, I guess, and globalization, these things kind of persist even internationally. So for thinking about this being primarily a wage bill, not the collective bargaining.
Representative Warren, thank you. We do really need to keep our questions directed. And I'm not exactly sure that this issue is about all of those things. And so I'll let Mr. O'Brien give a stab at it, but please keep it brief.
I think your question was around just sort of like how globalization has impacted wages, and how that relates to imperialism and colonization and stuff. I mean, I got into labor actually when I was in the Philippines and in Taiwan, when I was teaching over in Taiwan. And there was, migrant workers there who were just brutally exploited and it kept in a form of bondage. They were migrant workers from the Philippines who worked in Taiwan. And, you can see how a lot of the practices that we eliminated in the 19th century in the US were sort of exported over there. And, they're working for a lot of American companies. So yeah, I mean, it is all related.
Chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for being here. You talked about the opportunity to create and maintain wealth on the parts of minorities. Mm-hmm. Do you think whether or not this bill would help or hurt that opportunity should be germane to our discussion?
I think that the history that I was talking about was, it was about how people were unable to accumulate wealth through discriminatory policies. And an example of that is the wage and hour law. All of these workers, at the time in the South, in the 1930s, were agricultural and domestic workers in the South, and they're also tipped workers. And they were unable to achieve that American dream because they were exempted from wage and hour laws.
The chair recognizes Representative Morris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. O'Brien, in any of the research you've done, do you know approximately what the percentage of agricultural workers in Maine today are minorities?
That's a good question. I remember reading a report about that when I was in the legislature, but I don't know the answer to that right now.
We will have some data on that coming in the bill analysis, Representative Morris. Chair recognizes Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a big part of this point is that agricultural workers couldn't unionize or have any recourse against what was forced on them. So that's why you're tying this to this bill. Is that you're trying to make that connection, that because of the powerlessness this developed, not for some other reason that we could, you could say, well, no, it wasn't that, it was this. It's really racism and powerlessness to do anything about it. Is that correct?
I think it's more appropriate to say that, like, the value of slavery and sort of pseudo-slavery that existed in the South, following the end of the Civil War, was so valuable to the Southern planter class and to the Southern economy that they just didn't want to give it up, and they wanted to keep Black workers, farm workers, and domestics as second-class citizens, and to be able to exploit them easily.
Chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think we're getting into the discussion of the maybe the public hearing aspect of it, and I'm anxious to get on to the work session where we can do an analysis of the bill. I'm not sure if I'm the only one who feels that way.
You're not, as a matter of fact. And I was recognizing people to ask questions because I asked them to. This is not a public hearing, but because our members asked Mr. Brian O'Brien questions that seemed to be relevant to his testimony before us today, his presentation, I decided to entertain those. But with that, I'm going to thank you, Mr. O'Brien, for responding to my request to present this history to us. There was something in your testimony that is absolutely relevant to the situation that we are all in as Americans and as Mainers who eat the food that our agricultural workers grow. And you said something about the way in which the system then indebted farmers to a system that kept them in debt. Mm-hmm. And I would say, having served as chair of the Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry Committee and served on it for 3 terms, that a lot of farmers are still in debt, and it has nothing to do with their race. It has to do with the system that was set up as you described it here. And so I appreciate you for allowing this committee to get some of that history. With that, I thank you again. Have a great weekend. And I will now turn this over to Mr. Langland and Ms. Braun to present the excellent analysis that they did for us on LD 1022, an act to make agricultural workers and other workers employees under the wage and hour laws, presented by Representative Tom Harnett. Mr. Langland, the floor is yours.
Sure. So this bill provides that agricultural employees and seasonal employees are subject to the laws that place limits on mandatory overtime. It also provides that agricultural employees are subject to the laws that set a minimum wage and overtime rate. And it provides that the laws that set an overtime rate apply to certain activities related to agricultural produce, meat, and fish products, and perishable foods. So federally, as was just discussed, the Fair Labor Standards Act, which is in 29 USC 201, there are overtime exemptions for agricultural employees. There's a minimum wage and overtime exemption for certain agricultural employees. So when an employer did not, during any calendar quarter during the preceding calendar year, use more than 500 man days of agricultural labor, and man day is defined as any day during which an employee performs any agricultural labor for not less than 1 hour. So when the employee is the parent, spouse, child, or other member of the employer's immediate family.
Lots of hands went up on that one. So we have a motion, ought to pass as amended. And
when the employee is employed as a hand harvest laborer and is paid on a piece rate basis in an operation which has been and is customarily and generally recognized as having been paid on a piece rate basis in the region of employment, commutes daily from the employee's permanent residence to the farm on which the employee is so employed, and has been employed in agriculture less than 13 weeks during the preceding calendar year. There's also an exception for when the employee is non-local, 16 years of age or under, employed as a hand harvest laborer and is paid on a piece rate basis in an operation which has been and is customarily and generally recognized as having been paid on a piece rate basis in the region of employment, and is employed on the same farm as his parent or person standing in the place of his parent, and is paid at the same piece rate as employees over age 16 are paid on the same farm. and when the employee is principally engaged in the range production of livestock. So the Fair Labor Standards Act does specify that there is a youth minimum wage, which is $4.25 an hour, and it applies to an employee under 20 years of age during the first 90 consecutive calendar days of employment. We've discussed this sort of quite a bit when we went over the minimum wage bills. It's not applicable to the minimum wage here in Maine. Fair Labor Standards Act does not apply when any state law or municipal ordinance establishes a higher labor standard. Maine establishes a lower standard than federal law with respect to minimum wages for agricultural workers. So the federal minimum wage of $7.25 applies, unless, as I noted, one of the exceptions above is applicable. Maine law also specifies limits on mandatory overtime. And it says that an employer may not require an employee to work more than 80 hours of overtime in any consecutive 2-week period. An exception to this would be an employee of a seasonal employer. And it says it's defined as an employer in an industry that operates in a regularly recurring period or periods of less than 26 weeks in a calendar year. In terms of minimum wage and overtime, agricultural employees are exempt from Maine's minimum wage and overtime laws. There are additional exemption for overtime for employees that are engaged in the canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, packing for shipment, or distributing of agricultural produce, meat and fish products, and perishable foods. That section of law also says that individuals employed directly or indirectly for or at an egg processing facility that has over 300,000 laying birds must be paid overtime in accordance with that subsection. Minimum wage and overtime requirements also do apply to an employee that performs services for or on a farm with over 300,000 laying birds. We actually did receive a preliminary fiscal impact statement for the bill, which is not a statement that I get to make too often to the committee. And it is attached. So what it says is the regulation and enforcement program within DOL will require ongoing general fund appropriations for 2 labor and safety inspector positions to enforce the minimum wage and overtime protections for agricultural and seasonal employees. It assumes an effective date of October 1st of this year. And the Department of Labor estimated that the legislation will increase the number of employees covered by the minimum wage and overtime protections by 30,000. So I also included in my analysis sort of highlighted sections that I had prepared back during the public hearing that shows, since it was primarily a repeal bill, what it's actually repealing. And as Senator Hickman said, this is a rather extensive bill analysis with a lot of different parts that I certainly made excellent use of my researcher. And if you have anything in particular that you'd like to go over, she is the one who has done almost all of the research on these issues, and she is with us today. And I think she'd be happy to sort of walk you through some of the discoveries that she found if you have any specific questions. And I also understand that there might be a couple of folks from the agency here. I think earlier I saw Jorge Acero, I think from the Department of Labor. He might be able to answer some questions as well. So with that, I will yield to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. And Ms. Braun, if you would please share the screen one more time and sort of walk us just a little bit through the chart of other states that have looked at laws like this or have not looked at laws like this, because I do believe that that is important for the committee. The chair recognizes Senator Guerin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I have a question about when this, for our analyst, when would this take effect, where this is a special session? Would that be effective immediately if the governor was to, in my opinion, unwisely sign this bill? Because the costs would not be planned for by the farmers, and I would feel like that would be very detrimental to their business plans.
So there is no emergency preamble on the bill. So it would go into effect 90 days after the legislature adjourns its special session.
Okay, thank you.
And Senator Guerin, that would be the bill as written. I will also recognize that Representative Tom Harnett is here, and I will allow him to answer that question if he chooses to now or later. It's completely up to you, Representative Harnett.
I can answer that right now. Senator Guerin, I have the assistance of your analyst is prepared an amendment to the bill, which would allow for a phase-in of the overtime portion of the bill, beginning at 50 hours on January 1st of 2022, then going to 45 hours on January 1st, 2023, and then going to treat workers, farm workers, the same as all other employees in the state of Maine, finally, on January 1st, 2024.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. Brown, please proceed.
Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, hold on. Now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first thing I looked at were laws in other states regarding minimum wage for agricultural workers and domestic workers. And in this table, I looked at all of the states that have a minimum wage higher than the federal minimum wage. So I will just go through this, and I have a summary at the end.
This is an incredible amount of research, and I just want to say that out loud before you get to your summary.
Thank you so much. So there are 20 other states and the District of Columbia that have a higher minimum wage than the federal minimum wage. And of those states, 22 states and the District of Columbia include agricultural workers in their minimum wage laws. There are some exemptions in most cases, but there are 6 states that specifically exempt agricultural workers from minimum wage coverage. And of the 4 other New England states that have a higher minimum wage than the federal wage, only Connecticut extends minimum wage coverage to most agricultural workers. Massachusetts specifies a minimum wage of $8 an hour. And as I mentioned previously, Rhode Island and Vermont exempt agricultural workers from minimum wage coverage. And then in regard to domestic workers, 23 states and the District of Columbia include domestic workers in their minimum wage, and they have some exemptions in most cases as well. And there are 5 states that specifically exempt domestic workers from minimum wage coverage. 3 of the other 4 New England states exempt domestic workers from the minimum wage, with the exception of employees covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act in Connecticut. Massachusetts specifies a minimum wage of $36 per week for certain domestic workers, but does not specify an exemption for all domestic workers.
Thank you, Ms. Braun. I just want to pause right there to just get a quicker glimpse here and to see if committee members have any questions for you. I guess my question is, from this chart, which we can all look at when we get an opportunity to read it through in detail, it looks as though Connecticut is the only state in New England that allows agricultural workers to have minimum wage protection.
Yes.
Does that also in Connecticut allow for overtime or just minimum wage protection?
I will have to look at the overtime chart. I also prepared a chart for domestic workers and agricultural workers and the overtime laws in certain states for
so that's a chart later in the presentation.
Yep.
Perfect. Yes. The chair recognizes Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering, in your research, what I'm hearing is that traditionally disenfranchised people, when you say domestic workers or farm workers, either are minorities or women, And those are groups that are underrepresented in legislatures. Is that what you found during your research? Does it just sound like this on this little part that you've presented so far, and I should wait for a broader picture?
I can't really speak to that. I was just looking at the laws specifically and not the history behind it. So I was looking for states that included agricultural workers in their overtime and minimum wage laws, and domestic workers as well, and then also look for specific exemptions. So I don't know much of the history behind it.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I should also say that Michael Guerre of Pine Tree Legal Assistance also submitted sort of his own look at other laws as well. And you probably have discovered that within my super lengthy bill analysis that I sent you. So he has submitted that as well as some additional information later in the analysis. And I think he's here if you have any questions pertaining to that.
Great. So this is the overtime part of what we found out in our research that was presented to you from him. Great. Does anyone have any questions about that or would like to hear more about that from the person who put that particular part of the research together for this analysis? Seeing none, please continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for the scrolling.
Okay. So what you are scrolling through, if I may say, these are the actual laws from the states that you did the research. Is that correct?
This isn't, but I think this is something. I think this is something else, but it does look like one of the laws that I researched, but I didn't include these in my particular analysis because I had hyperlinks to all of the state laws.
Got it. So these must be notices of rulemaking, perhaps, from the states where these laws exist?
Possibly. Is this
Yeah, this was submitted by Mr. Guerre.
Okay, so this is okay, I understand now. These are the notices for what employers must do according to the laws of the state.
okay, that's the H2A.
And I believe this is the part, if you could scroll back.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't see my overtime chart yet, but this is information that I obtained from another request about H2A visa farm workers in Maine.
Yes.
Do you want me to address this now, or do you want to wait till later?
You can address this now.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So this information I obtained from the U.S. Department of Labor. It's from their Office of Foreign Labor Certification. It's part of the H2A application process that employers must do. They have to file an application to be certified for temporary foreign labor, and they have to apply with the U.S. Department of Labor. So this is the information that Maine farmers provided in those applications. And this kind of gives you an idea of the farms in Maine that have requested to be certified to employ H2A workers. And I also, from that data, for 2021, 2020, and 2019, I also have for each of those farms that applied the number of workers that they were certified to employ. And so if I scroll through for just this year, 2021, and it isn't a full year yet, so the numbers for this year are smaller than the previous years. There were 23 employers who were certified for 211 H-2A visa farm workers. And then in last year in 2020, there were 39 farms that were certified by the Department of Labor for 759 workers. And then in 2019, 38 farms were certified for 814 workers.
Thank you. Are there any questions about this part of the presentation from the committee? Chair recognizes Senator Guerin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any record of how many of these are women or minority workers?
No, there was no information in the data regarding that.
Maybe I saw this in a different document, but I felt like somewhere in this there was, maybe I read it somewhere else, a USDA spreadsheet of the number of farms in Maine, what they produced, and what the demographic makeup was. Was that in this presentation, or did I just confuse that with something else I read yesterday?
That wasn't anything in my research.
Okay. Mr. Langland, does that sound familiar to you as a part of this document?
There, the only thing that I have that you might be referring to and you might not be, was there was something from the 2017 Census of Agriculture.
Yes, I think that's it.
That sort of broke down the summary by market value of products sold.
Do you have that? Is there a way to find that?
I do. I can probably put it in the chat, and then you can download it. If I don't know that this is what you're referring to, but this is the only other thing that I'm aware of. I will put that in the chat.
While that's going into the chat, Chair recognizes Senator Guerin. Unless that was from before.
No, I did have kind of a follow-up question on that. If we don't have the exact numbers, do we know if the majority of Maine farm workers are non-minority? I believe I had heard that in one of our testimonies.
I did not get that as a research request, so I didn't look into that information. But I certainly can do that for if we're going to have another work session on this.
Senator Guerin, is that something that you would request if we don't have it in front of us today?
I would like to know that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Mr. Langland, thank you for including that. It was not the document that I thought I saw. In any event, Ms. Braun, what else would you like to present to us from your research here today?
Okay. I was looking for my overtime chart. Is that in here, or is that? I didn't.
It might have. Yeah, it might be before your H-2A one. There was some.
Oh, okay. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just bring up my own document if that's okay.
Yes, that's perfectly fine.
Hold on.
And while you look for your overtime chart, Chair recognizes Senator Meermont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just thinking that Senator Guerin's question may be able to be answered by the sponsor, as he was in the Attorney General's office dealing with these issues for his career.
That is certainly a possibility. And I will turn to him if he has an answer to that momentarily, but I would like for Ms. Braun to first continue the rest of her presentation so that we can get everything in one fell swoop here.
Okay.
And I would say that no matter what the numbers are, again, we're talking about a system where anyone who is a farm worker, no matter their background, is working in a system that was set up based upon the history that was presented earlier today. And I know that that is what this bill is attempting to correct. Whether or not it passes is not the issue at the moment. The issue at the moment is for all of us to at least understand how we got here. Ms. Braun, please continue.
Sure. So can everybody see this document, state laws regarding overtime pay for agricultural workers?
Yes.
Okay. So there are currently 6 states, as well as the District of Columbia, that extend overtime pay to agricultural workers.
Does anyone have any questions about this particular piece of the presentation? This is in our bill analysis. It is very long, and that is why we do not expect to take a vote on this today. This is an information session for our work on this bill. We will be meeting next Wednesday, I do believe, and that is when we will complete this work. But until then, if anyone has any further questions for Mr. Langland or Ms. Braun that they would like to have information about before we vote this bill out next week, we can certainly make sure that that happens. The chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I think we were thinking back on the discussion and comparing the rest of our New England states to Maine. Weren't we looking to see what Connecticut did specifically with overtime?
Okay, great. Great question.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Okay. So Connecticut is not in here as a state that extends overtime to agricultural workers.
So that would mean, or we could deduce, but we could certainly get the clarifying answer for next week. That would mean that they extend the minimum wage protection to farm workers, but not overtime.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is kind of a follow-up of Representative Bradstreet's. Of those 6 New England states that you just showed us on your worksheet there, how many of those pay overtime? Do we know?
Pay overtime to all workers, or
To their farm workers is what the subject is. So.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, there are these 6 states, and none of them are New England states.
So Representative Drinkwater, I think we're just conflating a few things. These are the 6 states currently in the United States of America that extend overtime pay to agricultural workers. Some of these states, other states extend the minimum wage protection to the agricultural workers, but not overtime. And so Connecticut is the one state in New England that we have seen so far, the only state that extends minimum wage to its farm workers, but not overtime.
So if I may follow up on that, Mr. Chair.
You may.
I'm hearing different hours of what constitutes a work week.
Yes.
What do we know what Connecticut constitutes as a work week?
I believe it's 40 hours, but I can verify that.
Yes,
later.
thank you. Yes, thank you. We will certainly verify that for next time. Basically, Representative Drinkwater, if I understand what you're getting at, is some of the states that do pay overtime to agricultural workers, which you can see right here for California, define the work week as 55 hours currently, or actually, where are we in I guess it's 45 hours now. When it started, it was 55. But the 40-hour work week is established by federal law. So all work weeks for all other workers that are not domestics or agricultural workers is 40 hours a week. Only for agricultural workers and perhaps some seasonal workers in some other states, which I didn't ask for research on all other seasonal workers, it's clear that the work week is extended for the purposes of the nature of the industry, so that it's not a 40-hour work week. We got some testimony in the mail, in our email today, in fact, from the Maine Farm Bureau that pointed out in New York, the work week is 60 hours. So if you're a farm worker that works more than 60 hours, you would qualify for overtime. And in that article, we saw that farmers even felt burdened by a 60-hour work week and having to pay overtime beyond that. So I hope that answers at least your question for now. And we all have some reading to do before next week. And that was the point of this homework assignment, if you will, presented to us on a Friday afternoon. That's the way the schedule worked out, because it took the Office of Policy and Legal Analysis weeks to do this work, and they've done a great job. And so I'm glad that we are considering it, even though it's late in the session. Ms. Braun, you may continue. Unless
Sure.
someone has a question, I'm sorry, Representative Drinkwater, do you have another question?
I will a little bit later for the sponsor of the bill, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. Ms. Braun, go ahead.
Sure. Back to Representative Drinkwater's question. I believe I can confirm Connecticut's work week with the domestic worker overtime law chart because I believe Connecticut was in that chart. So I can proceed to that one unless anybody else has any questions about this particular chart.
Representative Drinkwater, do you have a question about this chart? Because your hand is still raised. I just want to.
Yes, I'm sorry, sir. I'm trying to find my little icon to get it lowered, but
All right.
thank you.
Please proceed, Ms. Braun.
Okay, so I will go to the next chart.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is the chart I compiled regarding the states that extend overtime pay to domestic workers. And you can see here of the 50 states in the United States, currently 12 states and the District of Columbia extend overtime pay to domestic workers. And there are some exceptions.
Thank you.
So if we look at Connecticut's law about the work week, the work week is 40 hours.
So Ms. Braun, if you scroll back up to the top.
Sure.
Thank you. So we can see as a committee that 12 states offer overtime employment wages right now to domestic workers, but only 6 states offer those same things to farm workers. Do we know, and the reason why I asked for this comparison, again, a lot came up in our public testimony from the public on if they didn't understand if these things were connected or not. And so this is showing that they are connected. Do we know if overtime, are these for domestic workers who are live-in or are they not live-in?
Some of them do specify live-in, like California's, for example, they distinguish between live-in and non-live-in, and they have different provisions for each. This one, Connecticut only cover domestic workers covered under the federal, the Fair Labor Standards Act. And it's my understanding that that does not include live-in domestic workers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions about this section? Like I said, this was for a comparison between the 2 biggest industries that were excluded from the Fair Labor Standards Act, farm workers and domestic workers. And we had a lot of discussion in the public hearing about those 2 things. The chair recognizes Senator Guerin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if anywhere in this research, it talks about people receiving like a farm share as part of their pay. Has that been, have you seen anything about that in?
I did not see that.
Okay, thank you.
But I was looking at just the overtime and minimum wage provisions. And sometimes some states, outline more than that in their statutes, but there may be another section of statute that I did not look at that might have referred to that. So I can certainly do that for the next work session.
Follow up
information on that. Yep.
And also housing as part of pay. I think those 2 components I would be interested in.
So housing, and when you say farm shares, Senator Guerin, what exactly do you mean? You mean
if they are receiving any food in replacement of pay or as part of their pay.
Okay.
And do they pay taxes on that food? I'm not sure if at your farm you do that, but I don't know if you'd have any familiarity with that, Senator.
With paying taxes on what food?
Well, that part of your farm, if you have farm workers who receive any part of their pay as a farm share or?
No, not on this farm. But
Okay.
I don't know that, oh, you mean do people pay, is the income taxed if it were a receipt of food or housing in lieu of wages? Would the food or the housing be taxable income by the farm worker? Is that the question?
Right.
That I do not have an answer to. And so I would ask for the analysts to when they do some research around that to find out if that is taxable income.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Rader.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. To Senator Guerin's question, I would be interested in how many of these domestics and agricultural workers also receive benefits of any kind.
Thank you. Mr. Langland and Ms. Braun, did you hear that request? It's a
Yes.
question about benefits above and beyond wages. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Chair recognizes Senator Mirma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, in trying to find out these issues, I wonder how you could fairly assess the value of housing or food when the worker has no power or voice. If that could be answered, I'd appreciate it.
Ms. Braun, is there anything else left in your presentation that you would like to share with us at this time?
No, I believe that is it. I mean, there was a request about the H-2A worker application process, and I didn't know if anyone is interested in that information or not.
Yes, if there was a request for it, we should see what that looks like. So if you could please continue to that, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
We want to see all of your work.
Sure.
Because you have put the time in, so.
Okay, that was in an email, so let me just bring that up. Or is that in the bill analysis anywhere? Or
Yeah, it is actually.
It is? Oh, okay.
On page 156.
Oh, okay.
Look at that, he knows the page number.
Awesome. 156. Sorry, I'm looking for it. I can't seem to find the okay. Let's see. I don't see any page numbers on the bill analysis.
No. What if maybe I'm thinking of something else. What were we looking for again?
The email that I sent you about the H-2A process.
I think, yeah, on page 156. I mean, I can share my screen if.
Oh, hold on.
I mean, as determined by the PDF. I didn't number the pages.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that was, in hindsight, that probably would have been helpful, wouldn't it?
That's okay. I'm here looking for page numbers, and yeah, of course the PDF has page numbers. Sorry about that. Okay.
Ta-da.
Okay. So this is the information requested about H2A workers. And I spoke with Jorge Acero at the Department of Labor, and he gave me some more information about the farms that employ H2A workers. And he had different numbers because the numbers that I had, they only went until March 31st. So these are the numbers of employers and H2A workers who the employers are certified to hire to date. So for diversified crops, which are vegetables and berries, there are 33 employers who filed 46 job orders for 689 positions. And then the apple orchards, which are just starting, there have been 4 employers who filed 4 job orders for 8 positions. For workers early in the season, they will be hiring many more for the fall harvest.
Thank you for that. If you scroll down, is that just on 1 page or a 2 page? We'll just kind of look at it as you scroll.
So this is the information about the H2A hiring process.
Yep.
So do you want me to go through it step by step, or okay? So to qualify to hire H2A workers, an employer must offer a job that is temporary or seasonal in nature. They must demonstrate that there are not enough U.S. workers who are able, willing, or qualified and available to do the temporary work. And they must show that employing H2A workers will not adversely affect the wages and working conditions of similarly employed U.S. workers. And an employer may apply on their own, or they may hire an immigration attorney or an agent to help facilitate the H2A application process and file applications on the employer's behalf. And as I showed in the table that I presented before, most of the farms use an agent or an immigration attorney to assist them in the process with hiring H2A workers.
And in your research, were you able to determine how many agent organizations in Maine exist to help farmers with their applications?
Just the ones that were on my chart. I don't have a list of all of them. One of the ones that I noticed that kept coming up a lot was what was it? The apple. Oh, what was it? Hold on, I'll bring up that chart.
In the meantime, the chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for bringing all this. This is a lot of hard work, and I appreciate it. And I'm wondering if there's any way we can tell how many people, workers, wish to be included but are not able to because of different requirements or stipulations that they can't meet, or if the job's already filled and there's no more to take. Is there any way of possibly of knowing that?
Do you mean U.S. workers?
H2A workers who want to get into the program but are not able to because their places are all filled.
Representative Bradstreet, just so I understand your question, in the current program in Maine, you would like to know how many workers may apply to be a part of it from other places, but who are denied because there's not enough spaces for them? Is that the question? Essentially, yes. I'd like to know if there's for instance, if there's a waiting list for people to get on that list, but it's like a waiting list to get into a school. The places are all filled. You have to get on the waiting list. So how many might be on a waiting list to get into Maine and work?
This is Mike Rowland. Can I just interject a moment?
Welcome, Mr. Rowland. The chair will recognize you. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, Mike Rowland. I'm the director of the Bureau of Labor Standards. And also with us is Jorge Acero. So I think still on. Luckily, he's overtime exempt, if that's relevant here. And he's sticking with the committee because he might have answers to some of those H2A questions that you're asking. he can either answer them now, or we'll make a list of questions, or you can give us a list of questions and we'll respond to them. But I believe he is present.
Yeah, hi everyone. Yes, I'm here. So I'm happy to answer questions at this time, or we certainly if you'd like to send them.
Thank you for being here. I was going to say, Mr. Acero, if you could just turn on your camera.
I think I just
don't want to. You don't have to if you don't want to, but we
no problem. Just, you know, I don't, with all due respect, I'm not dressed as respectfully as all of you at your posts, but I'm happy to answer any questions at this time on the H2A program, and I would be I've been actually like a horse at the gate, chomping at the bit to when I heard a couple of questions earlier in relation to workers out there. So I'd be happy to answer questions on the demographics of farm workers, on the H2A program, how it works, et cetera, et cetera.
I would actually ask you to stop chomping on the bit and please answer the questions that you have heard that you are able to answer with the accurate information that you have based upon your professional experience, sir.
In response to, I believe it was Representative or Senator Guerin, in terms of minorities working, if we look at the H2A program, the workers that come to Maine on the H2A program are folks from Jamaica, Mexico, Central America. By default, they are minorities when they arrive in the United States. They are people of color, they are Hispanics, et cetera, et cetera. So by economic default, they're low-income folk. As far as U.S. domestic workers, we have a majority of migrant farm workers that travel from Florida and mid-Atlantic states that also happen to be Hispanic or Haitian or other immigrant, including Filipinos and so on. The Passamaquoddy and Wabanaki, members of those tribes, also contribute quite a bit to the labor force, especially in Washington County when it comes to the blueberry raking and so on. And they are, of course, Native American and Native Canadian people that are considered minorities. So that's, you know, that's a simple. If we look at the average family farm in Maine, where the relatives all work together, the children work together, those are small family farms, and perhaps maybe the majority of those are not minority farm workers, okay? But in terms of the H2A, the numbers that you've been hearing, all of those folks can be considered minorities. The H2A program requires that employers provide free housing and free transportation to the work site. They can provide meals, but there is a meal rate that is set by the federal government. But if they don't want to provide meals, they must provide a kitchen with free of utilities and so on, so that the workers can cook their own meals, and provide transportation to the stores so that the workers can buy their food to cook. Now, if it's independent domestic U.S. farm workers, such as those that might live in Florida or the mid-Atlantic states, or even as far as Louisiana, and some people come even as far as California, if they travel here on their own, a farmer may choose to charge them for housing. And if the farmer does charge for housing, the charge cannot take them below the minimum federal pay rate, which is what, $7.25 now for a 40-hour work week. Is that understood? And so some farms do charge a little bit for the housing that they provide to migrant workers. Other farms do not charge. They're happy to just, you know, have the farm worker there, and they provide a kitchen, and the farm workers have their own vehicles, and they go and buy their own food and they cook it. But many of the farms, especially the large dairies, and they do charge, and some of the small vegetable farms also do charge farm workers rent. But again, it cannot impact their wages. What was the last question that I think, let's see. The agents that process, Maine does not have an independent agent at all, actually, but Maine does have several immigration law firms that do process foreign labor visas, such as H-2A and H-2B and the other foreign labor. And they're professional law firms, they're immigration law firms, and they do other types of immigration work. The agents that do work for most of the large farms and even small farms are out of state. For example, the New England Apple Council, which is not really an Apple Council, it's actually an employment service agency that does recruiting in Jamaica for the apple growers in almost all of New England, including New York State. And I beg your pardon, I just realized that my camera was still not on. So anyway, those agents, the New England Apple Council is out of New Hampshire, and it's been around for over 20 years. Some of the farm workers that work in the apple orchards have been coming to Maine for over 20 years, and now their sons and nephews are coming to work. Their rates of pay are based on an adverse effect wage rate that is set by the US government. So currently this year, all farm workers on the H-2A program are earning $14.99. Some farms choose to pay even higher than that just because they can. And other farms, and some farms that don't use the H-2A program, pay a high wage because they need to attract workers in some form. Okay. Now, on track for the other agents are from different states. There are agents in Minnesota, there are agents in the mid-Atlantic states, agents as far away as Idaho and California that represent employers here in Maine. These are just national, very large agencies that deal in basically processing foreign labor and in recruiting workers in Mexico, the Caribbean, and even as far away as South Africa and Europe and Eastern Europe.
And do you have any idea on, are there workers on wait lists to get into programs?
Yeah, no, that's not how, it's possible that there could be, but that's not how the process works. Really the way it works is an employer contracts this agency to recruit workers for them. There is no wait list. The recruiter can show up in a small village in the highlands of Mexico or the highlands of Honduras and literally just drive up and say, is anybody interested in going to the United States? And as long as they have a clean record, they can be taken to the US consulate and interviewed. And if they have a good health record and a good clean personal record, they're let in. The United States has well over 300,000 H-2A workers in the United States at any one time.
And do you know, say, the average fee that an employer has to pay in order to engage either an agent or an immigration lawyer to help them with their H-2 applications?
I don't know the exact fee, but there are several costs involved, and I would like to guesstimate that the costs to farmers are anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000 per application, and that includes the processing of the foreign labor certification with the USDOL and the visa processing with immigration services. And then, of course, the recruitment processes, and they have to pay for the transportation of the worker to come to the United States as well.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That question about 14.
You went on mute, Senator Mearmont. Senator Mearmont, you're on mute. Senator Mearmont, you're on. Oh, I guess he's not on mute. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Me. Can you hear Senator Mearmont?
No.
Okay. Senator Mirmont, something has happened. You are not on mute, but we cannot seem to hear you.
Lowering my hand, I disconnected my audio. Did you hear any of my question?
No, we did not.
The $14.99 an hour that places are paying is to 40 hours because very few states require pay for overtime. That's 14 hours straight for the 40 hours that you were mentioning, Mr. Acero?
Yes, yes, Senator. It's the base rate for an H-2A worker. Now, some farmers, some employers that use the H-2A program will list a 50-hour work week, and they will pay $14.99 for that 50-hour work week. And
Just
whatever, excuse me, whatever hours they offer, that's the rate they will have to pay. They will have to pay the set adverse effect wage rate at that time for the number of hours that they request the worker to work.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, follow up?
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is any part of that $14.99 subsidized by the federal government, or is that completely from the farmers or employers?
It's completely from the employer.
And Mr. Searle, do you know in any state that requires overtime of a farm worker, are these workers included in that, or are they exempt from that?
The regulations of the Foreign Labor Program require that employers abide by all local, state, and federal laws while employing foreign workers under the Foreign Labor Certification Program. So that means that if a state is to require overtime on the base rate, then the worker, no, actually, let me retract that, because if it's $14.99, that's the federally set rate, whether they would have to pay overtime on the $14.99 or on the main minimum wage. But because it's the set wage, H-2A workers are not earning the federal minimum wage, and they're not earning the state minimum wage. They're earning a set adverse effect wage rate. So they would have to pay the overtime on the set adverse effect wage rate.
So they would have to pay overtime in any state on what the $14.99 in this case?
If there's a state law requiring overtime payment to farm workers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on this subject of any kind for the department or one of our analysts? Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Jorge, I have a question about the wage versus piecework. In your experience, do you see more farmers paying the immigrants a piecework or a minimum wage?
The larger farms that have very quick harvesting work prefer to pay the piece rate. Now, the law states that the piece rate that is paid must be equal to what the worker would have earned on an hourly rate at a 40-hour work week. Okay, so for the most part, those that work on the piece rate will earn way over the amount that they would normally earn under an hourly rate. But they work very, very hard for that. They really push hard. And small family farms where the labor is more relaxed, there's no pressure, there's no harvesting pressure, except for some of the small apple orchards, they tend to pay on an hourly rate rather than piece rate. Some of the larger apple orchards pay the piece rate, and I know that the big broccoli farms prefer to pay on the piece rate.
Mr. Chair, just a quick follow-up, if I may.
You may.
Talking to a dairy farmer in my district, dairy farmers seem to think they're under a different set of regulations than the farmers of vegetables. Do you know anything about that at all?
the only thing I can speak to in that regard is that dairy farm is considered full-time permanent employment, whereas the protections for vegetable farms and it's seasonal work, and so the workers are needed on a seasonal basis. Especially here in Maine, you know, the farms really, the majority of vegetable farms really shut down, except for packing. They're able to, some of the larger farms can now push packing all the way through the winter. But we're talking about potatoes and tubers and other, you know, things like that. Because I mean, it's amazing that we can go to a grocery store now and, you know, and find Maine beets, you know, in the middle of January, you know.
I wanted to just backtrack a little bit on sort of the percentage of the workforce that are farm workers in Maine. Do we have data, or can we get data for the next work session on this, of the percentage of the entire farm worker labor force in Maine that are H-2A holders? Is that data that could be researched in 5 days, or do you have any idea of the answer to that? And maybe Mr. Rowland knows. I don't know. I just thought I would ask that as well.
You want me to take that, Jorge?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we can derive that based on some of the numbers that we have regarding agricultural workers in general, and we know the numbers of H-2A workers also, but they will be approximations, if that's all right.
That's fine. I think that sort of gets to the crux of some of the questions that were asked, but it's always good to know, as we are the chair that oversees labor, to know what our workforce looks like, especially on this issue.
Can I explain one? There's one thing about agricultural, enumerating agricultural workers is difficult. And I apologize that we haven't produced more reliable or comprehensive numbers, but many or most of agricultural employees are not covered by unemployment insurance. And for better or worse, that's the data that we use to estimate or to count workers in different professions. And so that's one reason that our numbers are not as good as we'd like them to be.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for anyone at this time? Ms. Braun, were you, I know that we sort of took over the presentation on the process for H-2A workers, which is sometimes what happens. Is there anything else from your research that you would like to share with the committee at this time? I want to make sure to honor your work.
Oh, thank you. No, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got a couple of questions, if I may ask the sponsor of the bill.
You may.
Mr. Harnett, thanks for your patience sitting over there. I know it's been a long day for you too. These are just going to be some simple yes or no questions. Should we be concerned that farmers will go to minimum wages and not allow overtime?
I think no.
Would you agree that a farm worker can make more money by piece rate?
Depends on the crop.
Would your bill prevent farmers from paying piece meal or piece work?
It would not prevent piece work, farmers being paid by piece rate. It could not go below the minimum wage though.
And my last question is, any concerns that the wage scale change would cause the employer to rearrange the pay scale, such as housing, food, transportation?
These are really not yes or no answer type questions for me. I mean, the charging housing is a complicated issue. Housing that's for the benefit of the employer cannot be used against the minimum wage. Most farmers find that they cannot secure a workforce without providing housing for migrant and seasonal farm workers. You have to be very careful when you're paying somebody below the minimum wage to justify some offsets. It's been a long time since I've litigated those cases, but it's not, people like to work for money primarily. There are benefits to housing, no doubt. But again, the question is the housing for the benefit of, primarily for the benefit of the employer or the employee? And so I don't know if that's the best I can do on trying to answer your question.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome, Representative.
The chair recognizes Representative Warren.
I wasn't sure if we're, thank you. I wasn't sure if we were done, but I just wanted to thank, or done with the part of the analysis. I want to thank Kristen and Steve and Andy for all of their research and analysis. I wasn't sure if we were at a switch point. So I just want to make sure to thank everyone while they're all still on the Zoom.
Appreciate that, Representative. Yes, it's approaching 5, and so we won't go forever. We will probably end soon. It's been understood that this is more of an information session on this bill, and we have more questions that we would like to get some answers to. The chair recognizes Senator Miramont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the sponsor, please. Haven't you found in your work in the AG's office when investigating these issues that what's considered housing is sometimes substandard, even for the countries that these folks came from? So to offset anything by some of this so-called housing would be an injustice just to begin with?
I don't want to paint all farm worker housing with one broad brush stroke. That's not fair to the different agricultural employers that are out there. I have seen housing situations in the state of Maine in my 34 years here now that are, I would consider, unfit for human habitation or overcrowded or in very poor condition. But I've seen housing that is quite good as well. But the rule, most housing I have witnessed for farm workers in all of my 45 years doing this, I would not consider to be workers. I would consider to be substandard housing.
And a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
1 second, you can. I just want to check. Ms. Thompson, are you still here? It looks like she left. I wanted to send her off. Well, it's Friday and it's her last day. I think she probably had to leave within the last couple of questions and answers, but at least we were able to applaud her work on behalf of this committee while she was still here to hear it. That's what I wanted to check before we, oh, she's here. Ms. Thompson, can you please turn on your camera? Your video, I should say.
Yeah, sorry, I was answering voicemails and then I was like, oh wait, he's talking about me.
Yes, we're talking about you. I know that you have to leave for the day and we won't be here very much longer, but I wanted to make sure that before you left that you understood how much we appreciate your work for this committee. I know that you were here before I was here and I've heard nothing but great things about you and they were all confirmed. And so if the committee could turn on its videos so that we can send off our clerk, we will have something for you under separate cover. But for the day, if you are here, we want to thank you and applaud you.
Thank you guys very much.
We wish you the very best in your future endeavors. And I'll say this now because you are about to leave us. I do hope to be a good senator for you. So does anyone want to say anything to Ms. Thompson? So if your hand is up, you're going to say something to her. Senator, Chair recognizes Senator Miramont.
You guys are going to make me blush.
Senator Miramont.
Yes, I've had several different clerks and you are outstanding. You are at the top and I really appreciate your work and recognize how valuable it's been. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Chair recognizes Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator. I am horribly disorganized and often have been asking Alyssa for the link to get on here moments before the meeting started. She's always been extremely cheerful, extremely forgiving, and very quick about helping me get what I needed. So thank you very much, Alyssa, and we will miss you.
Chair recognizes Senator Gare.
Alyssa, you have gone above and beyond what we normally expect of a clerk. You handling the Zoom meetings and being so patient in resending the links and just following up on everything we asked. Thank you so much. You are a wonder, and it was a blessing to have you this year.
Thank
And
you.
I must say, I wanted to do it a different way. And she said, oh no, we're going to get pushback because the committee just loves their breakout rooms. You can't take it away from them. So here we are. The chair recognizes Chairman Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've already said to you, Alyssa, how much we appreciate all your work. And I hope that, as you go on, that you find all your dreams. But if one of those dreams happens to be back in the second session with this sorry crew, then you are the chair is yours, and we so look forward to seeing where you go with your life, and anything we can do to support that. Please make sure you reach out.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. I think we've just gotten more like, cheer and good cheer, love and best wishes. And so Godspeed.
I really appreciate that. It's been wonderful getting to know you all and work with you this session. As weird as it's been, we made it work.
Thank you. So with that, are there any other questions for the bill sponsor, for the department, for the analyst? We've got a few hands up. I'll go to recognize Senator Guerin.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Julianne Smith from the Maine Farm Bureau, if I may.
You may.
The question is about current housing questions and conditions, and if those are federally regulated.
And is Ms. Julianne Smith here? If so, please turn on your video. Introduce yourself. Ta-da. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very nice to see you, Senator Hickman, and thank you for your question. My name is Julianne Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Farm Bureau Association. And honestly, Jorge Aceros may be able to speak more directly to the legal requirements of housing for agricultural workers. Those are federally regulated with the H-2A program. So, but there's nothing subpar about them. I actually have farmers complain that their workers have better housing than they themselves can provide. So that I would have to disagree with the assessment that there is any sort of subpar housing currently being offered to farm workers. There certainly were some issues with a specific farm, DeCoster Farm, several years ago. That was quite a long time ago. Those have been dealt with. And as far as I'm aware, there are no current complaints about any farm housing that is being provided to farm workers.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Julianne Smith from the Maine Farm Bureau while we have her here? Seeing none, thank you for being here. Chair recognizes Senator Mirma.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just clearing that up on the housing too. When I asked the sponsor about the housing, I said some. I didn't say most. I said some because unless it's been a miraculous year during COVID, I know of some housing situations that are certainly subpar. So I would never agree with it's all been taken care of, but I'm always grateful to be proven wrong in those sorts of situations. And so I will be looking to be proven wrong this year when we get done with the legislature. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for anyone? Senator Guerin, your hand is still up. I will recognize you if you have a question.
I do have another question. One of my dairy farmers has been on the Zoom all day, Heath Miller, and I wondered if he had heard anything today that would change his opinion on this bill.
Mr. Miller, if you are here and care to answer that question. We can certainly, if he has heard most of what we're talking about,
I think I'm on.
You are on, sir.
All right. It took me a second to get situated there. I think I do very much appreciate what you said, Senator Hickman, about the farmers in the situations that we are now. I thought the very same thing before you said it, that we are not much different. We are probably suppressed more than anyone else. I just, we're price takers, not price makers. And I think we're in a labor crunch right now. We all know it. We're obviously, the ones of us that have employees, we're obviously taking care of them correctly. I just think that, as we heard, we would be the first New England state to exempt, to allow ag workers to receive overtime. So I, for one, think my employees would probably be going to a different state, because I would not be able to afford to pay them much overtime like we do now. They require a lot of, they would like to work a lot, they want to make a lot of money, and they want to go home to their home state. So I guess that's where I'm at right now.
Thank you. We appreciate that. I wanted to just recognize Mr. Michael Guar, if he is still here. I know that he presented a lot of information that we requested. I want to thank him for his research. And I don't have any specific questions about it, but if you wanted to provide any more information related to anything you've heard based upon your work, please turn on your video and tell us. And if not, that's fine as well. You are on mute, sir. There we go.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. I realize it's 9 minutes after 5, and so I will do my best to be brief. I'm happy to answer any other questions that the committee has in follow-up to the next work session. I'm not quite sure what else to say, except thank you for the opportunity to participate in the process.
That's great. Like I said, I just wanted to recognize that you had also done some work at my request, at the committee's request, and we have all of that. And I know that I at least will read every page of it before our next work session. I will ask Representative Harnett if he would like to say anything in closing today's work session.
I'll be very brief. And if you want to stay at longer committee meetings, come over to Judiciary. Stay here even later. Thank you for allowing me to participate today. And I tried to be very clear when I answered the question on housing, that I was not painting all farmers with a broad brush, because that would be unfair. I said housing varies. I did not say that there was a great extent of substandard housing in the state of Maine. What I said was, in the 45 years that I've been doing this work, I have seen a lot of substandard housing. I've also seen housing in Maine that is in very good shape. So I don't want my comments to be misinterpreted. And I tried to be very, very clear about that, I thought. So thank you, Senator Hickman.
Thank you, Representative. I want to thank everyone for their patience today. I obviously am a historian. I'm a firm believer that whatever opinions we have about the system today that none of us are responsible for, it is important for us to understand how we got here. And having heard the testimony at the public hearing and having read every word of it, it was important for me to ensure that everyone had a full picture, at least as full as we could get in an hour or less, of how we got to where we are. There's much more research to do. There are many more things that I could have asked 4 other people to show up and present on labor history and why domestics and agricultural workers and tip workers were excluded. We don't have to agree to disagree about that, because those are facts. What we do about it is where we're going to have a debate, and that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to make sure that the committee had as much information about how we got here as possible, because I like to dispel misinformation, and that the history of the United States of America and the history of Maine are not always told through, shall we say, all of the lenses in which and through which it should be told. And so that is why we had a great day as far as I'm concerned, because it's been civil. Information has been shared and received. And I appreciate that there was some resistance at the beginning, but everybody endured. And I think we are all the better for it. This is about the foundation of the American economy. I am a farmer. I have been a farm worker. I am an employer of other farm workers. And so I'm on both sides of this issue as those things. And it's not a surprise that a Black farmer who is chairing the Labor and Housing Committee would want everyone to know a history that I know very well. And I am the descendant of it. And so I appreciate your indulgence. And I hope you understand that I put this forward in good faith, not to try to browbeat anyone, but history is history. Our researchers have given us the lay of the land as it currently exists. So we have information that we can look about in other states. If that informs our decision or doesn't, that's on each individual lawmaker to make. But once again, I appreciate the time that we have spent on this particular bill, and I would entertain a motion to table LD 1022 for the day. Chair recognizes Representative Cuddy.
I make a motion to table.
It's been moved to table. Is there a second? Seconded by Representative Warren. There is no debate on this motion, and I expect, do we have another committee clerk with us at the moment before I call for a roll? Yes, I see one. Ms. Breton, please call the roll. The motion is to table LD 1022.
I'm about to get on live, guys. I said I'm about to get on live in this here.
There we go. It's Friday. We're almost there. If there is no clerk to call the roll, can all the members please put your videos on? And by a show of hands, if you agree with the motion to table, please raise it.
You do have a clerk, but.
There we go. Just for everyone to hear. Thank you. We are calling the roll on the motion to table LD 1022.
Okay. May I ask who made the motion?
Representative Cuddy made the motion, and it was seconded by Representative Warren.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On my committee, I know the members' voices, but new committee. So I have a tabling motion made by Representative Cuddy, seconded by Representative Warren. So if you're in favor of tabling, you'll be voting yes. You're opposed, you'll be voting no. Senators Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Guerin.
Nay.
Senator Guerin, nay. Senator Marymount.
Yay.
Senator Marymount, yay. Representative Sylvester.
Yay.
Representative Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
No.
Representative Bradstreet, no. Representative Cuddy.
Yes.
Representative Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater.
Nay.
Representative Drinkwater, nay. Representative Gear. Absent. Representative Morris.
No.
Representative Morris, no. Representative Pebworth.
Hi, Miss Breton. Yes.
I Representative Pebworth. She's on the IDEA committee where I've been. Representative Prescott. Representative Prescott not here. Representative Ryder.
Yes.
Representative Ryder, yes. Representative Warren.
Yes.
Representative Warren, yes. 7 in the affirmative, 4 in the negative, 2 absent.
7 members voting in the affirmative. The motion prevails. LD 1022 will be tabled until we take it up again next week. Mr. Langland, do we have any language reviews on this late Friday afternoon?
We do if you're interested, or we can wait until Wednesday if you prefer. Totally up to you.
The chair recognizes Chairman Sylvester.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to move LD 1564 off the table.
If you could pause that motion for 1 second, please, sir.
Yes.
Thank you. Chairman Sylvester, I believe that the commissioner has asked us, as well as the bill sponsor, to leave the bill tabled for the day. I wanted to just clarify to make sure that that was the case. And that is the case.
I had other requests, so I will bow to the bill sponsor then. Thank you. I will remove my motion.
We can vote it, but I'm letting you know what my last request was. Unless I get a text message in this moment to change that, we'll go from there. Mr. Langland?
Would you like me to go through language review?
Sure.
Okay, sure. I'm ready.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Let's see. Share my screen. Okay. So the first one we have was LD 610, which was majority ought to pass as amended and minority ought not to pass. Or actually it was really majority ought to pass, but because there's a fiscal note required, it's ought to pass as amended. There is no language. So this was an act to amend the laws governing employer recovery of overcompensation paid to an employee. And there is funding. The Department of Labor is requesting funding for one half-time labor and safety inspector position. Assumes an effective date of October 1st.
Okay.
Okay. So there's that one. Let me pull up my next one. And that is LD 865, which is an act regarding the University of Maine system hiring practices. It was majority ought to pass and minority ought not to pass. So it becomes majority ought to pass as amended because the fiscal note's required. This is the bill that requires the University of Maine system to hire a consultant to conduct third-party reviews. So the fiscal note would be $60,000 appropriation ongoing.
Thank you. And if you could pause on language reviews, the chair recognizes Chairman Sylvester.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Langland. I appreciate
That my hand was still up. I apologize. The phone's confusing.
it. Well, I was going to say, Chairman Sylvester, that would you like to make your motion again?
Yes, I would move that we take LD 1564 off the table.
It's been moved. Is there a second? It's been seconded by Senator Miramont. It's been moved and seconded to take LD 1564 off of the table, and we're taking the vote because I said we weren't going to do it, and so I don't want to just lay this before the committee without a vote. Ms. Breton, will you please call the roll on whether or not we take LD 1564 off the table?
Okay, so you have a motion to take off the table LD 1564 made by Representative Sylvester and seconded by, I missed.
Representative Cuddy, I believe, or was it Senator Miramont? Who seconded it?
Miramont.
Oh,
Senator-
thank you.
Thank you.
So if you're in favor of taking it off, you'll be voting yes. You're opposed, you'll be voting no. Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Garin?
Nay.
Garin, nay. Senator Miramont?
Yay.
Senator Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester?
Yay.
Representative Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet?
Yay.
Representative Bradstreet, yay. Representative Cuddy?
Yes.
Representative Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater? Don't I have Representative Drinkwater? Okay. Absent. Representative Gear is also absent. Representative Morris?
No.
Representative Morris, no. Representative Pebworth?
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott? Representative Prescott's absent. Representative Rader?
Yes.
Representative Rader, yes. Representative Warren?
Yes.
Representative Warren, yes. 8 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative, 3 absent.
Excuse me, I think you had me as yay, but when I was nay, it's no.
Oh, I'm
three.
sorry.
I usually say no, but I got my tongue tangled.
Okay, so that would be 7, 3, and 2 absent.
So the motion prevails. We will take LD 1564 off the table. We will open the work session on LD 1564. Mr. Langland, I believe that there is an amendment. If you could share that, please.
Sure. So it was emailed shortly after the bill was taken up this morning. I don't have it on my screen, but my understanding of the amendment is so no, I have to find it.
If I recall, Mr. Langland, we would be taking section 21 from the bill.
There is a provision in section 21 that currently repeals language related to reemployment services and eligibility. My understanding is that the language is going to be, I don't know what the intent is entirely, if it's to leave the law as it is, and so just strike this section, but then also add language to the working group that the amendment proposes, and puts it in section 35 as a point of discussion, which involves the ability to submit legislation. So it's sort of, instead of making the decision, it puts the discussion in the hands of the stakeholder group for further consideration.
That is the understanding that I have of the amendment, that means that part of the law remains the same, and we will take that up in a discussion in the stakeholder group should the bill ultimately pass. And I am getting lots of text messages that say that Mr. Langland, that your read of that amendment is correct. And so we have a motion on the table for this bill. It's ought to pass as amended. And I would ask whoever made the motion to include this new amendment in as a friendly amendment to the motion ought to pass as amended. And Mr. Langland, can you remind me who made the motion? Yes.
Yeah, it was Representative Cuddy and Representative Warren seconded it. If you're talking about the motion from this morning.
It is the motion from this morning that is on the table in front of us. Representative Cuddy, are you here?
I am, sir. I would amend my motion to exactly that.
Okay. And I also see that the Speaker of the House has arrived to explain a bit about why we are coming to this decision. Speaker Fecto, would you please introduce yourself? And I recognize you to explain this to us.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Hickman, members of the committee, Speaker Fecto, represent my hometown of Biddeford in the legislature. Yes, so this is in response, this repeal of the well, not the repeal of section 21, but rather removing the striking of language within section 21 of the law. So in other words, keeping the law as is the result of some concern that was raised by members of the business community. I think that there potentially is some federal changes that have occurred that was the result of why that language was there to begin with. But I think the idea will be to put that towards the stakeholder group that will be convened and have that conversation. So just in response to concern raised by industry. Otherwise, as it was communicated earlier this morning, before you all endeavored on a very lengthy day of work, the bill, the amendment that's before you is taking basically what was presented by the department in the department's bill that Senator Vitelli sponsored, taking a few components of the bill that I put forward before this committee and translating those over. Any components of this bill that were flagged by the business community as a matter of concern has almost entirely been parked for discussion for a later time. And I think we'll have a stakeholder group convened by the department related to those items. Otherwise, I think this bill addresses a lot of the amended version addresses a lot of the concerns that were raised at the public hearing on both bills, both the bill sponsored by Senator Vitelli and the bill sponsored by me. So happy to answer any additional questions, but I think we've taken care of everything that we heard.
Thank you, Speaker Fecto. Are there any questions for the Speaker of the House from the committee? Chair recognizes Senator Guerin.
My question is not for the speaker. I wondered if we could hear from the business community, Peter Gore and Greg Dougal, on their thoughts on the amendment?
I respectfully ask that I do understand that the request for the amendment didn't necessarily come from either one of them. And so I will recognize Mr. Dana Duran to please turn on his video if he is here listening. Chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet in the meantime.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. I think Mr. Duran is here with us.
I thought I saw movement from
Okay,
his
so I'll defer to him.
name, but maybe there's a technical or a connectivity issue. Go ahead, Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you.
Here, I'm in a really bad cell service. If you can give 5 minutes, I can be back.
Okay.
That's fine. We have language reviews to do.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question might be more directed towards the department. I wonder how many people in the business community actually took place in the negotiations and then the language construction of the bill. I know there's been an assertion that their concerns were answered, but were they actually part of the discussion? That's what I would like to know.
I do not see anyone from the department here at this moment, but if we wait a few minutes, we probably can have someone come and answer that question. So we'll leave this work session open until such time as we can get an answer to that. Unless Speaker Fecto, you have an answer for that question, even though he's asked it of the department. Representative Bradstreet has asked the question of the department. And you don't have to answer, Speaker Fecto, if you don't have an answer. I just thought I would give you the opportunity.
Well, Chairman Hickman, I mean, the one thing I would say is much of the negotiation was between my bill, my version of the bill, and the bill that was submitted by the department. I think there were differences between our two bills, and there was a lot of work done over the week to try to find common ground on the two bills before this committee. So in terms of negotiations, there was a great deal of negotiation between me and the department on trying to figure out how we could find common ground on the two bills. And then of course, you know, we heard testimony at the public hearing. I think much of that testimony has been accounted for in the final version of this amendment that's before you. And so I'm sure the department can share some additional information should they join, but I think that pretty much surmises the question at hand. I think one of the larger pieces of concern was extracting money from the UI Trust Fund, and as I mentioned this morning, that large concern was addressed in the amended version of this bill.
Mr. Chair.
The chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet, but 1 second, I was looking up the test. Oh, here we have the commissioner is joining us now. Representative Bradstreet.
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead.
And actually does pertain more to the LD 1564 and its construction. I want to know how many business people in the business community who I believe contribute 100% to the UI fund. And I think they average like $132 million per year over the last 10 years. So they have a significant interest in this. How many of them were actually present and part of the negotiations and the construction of the language of the bill? That's what I'd like to know.
In the language of 1564 at the outset, is that your question?
At the outset, I know there's been talk about how after the bills were constructed, that there's been discussion, but in the original construction of the bill, were they involved?
Okay, that is the question. I will ask Commissioner Fortman if she is here and wishes and can wish to answer that question. Good afternoon. Welcome back, Commissioner. It's been a long day. Thank you for being here again.
Hi, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with the audio.
We can hear you. We can hear you. We might have to have everybody else. Can you hear us? Maybe she can't hear us.
It's cutting in and out. But I think the echo has stopped. So Laura Fortman, Commissioner in the Maine Department of Labor. I think.
Good afternoon, welcome back, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here again.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with the audio.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Sounds like somebody has the YouTube on in the background.
Oh, can everyone please mute? Maybe the commissioner has the YouTube on in the background. I don't know. Because you're right, it's on a delay. Commissioner Foreman, you might want to just turn down the volume on the YouTube so that we can't hear the feedback while you give your answer. She left. Commissioner will be back. Representative Bradstreet, I'm recognizing you because your hand is still up.
Sorry about that. I
No
may have
problem.
questions later, but I will lower my hand right now.
I just wanted to make sure. So we are waiting for the commissioner to return and for Mr. Duran to return. And in the meantime, the chair will recognize Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I haven't read anything that has been proposed today. My bad, but I've been pretty busy since 9 o'clock, as all of us have. I guess my question would be on the stakeholders group. Do we know, is it included in the language what the makeup of the stakeholders group will be?
So Representative Drinkwater, we are waiting right now for a few people to show up. I'm going to encourage you to click on the link and read it because you can read. I know you can, and it doesn't take that long to read it. And I also want to say that LD 1564 as presented in a public hearing in front of this committee is largely intact. One member of the business community testified in favor of it. I looked at the record. It's Mr. Curtis Picard. I do not see him here today. But if you would like to do what I just did and read his testimony to see why he supported 1564 and opposed 1571, that's right there for you to see. Is there anyone else that needs help finding the link so that they can read what we are going to vote on very shortly? Okay, with that, we'll be at ease until either Mr. Duran, we won't be at ease. We will take language reviews because I don't want to waste any time on a Friday afternoon. Commissioner Fortman is back. Commissioner Fortman, can you hear us?
I apologize. Yes, I do. So Laura Fortman, Commissioner in the Maine Department of Labor, and I think I heard Representative Bradstreet's question, which was when we were crafting the initial department bill, how many members of the business community were involved in crafting that original bill. Is that accurate, Representative?
Yes, were they and were they actively involved? Were, you know, the people we normally have here representing the business community?
Yeah. So when the department crafted its initial bill, we were responding to what we had seen over the pandemic. And when we had the draft of the bill available, we convened a Zoom meeting with members from a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, NFIB, the Hospitality Maine, and the Retailers Association to walk through the bill. It was not a negotiation, but it was an opportunity for us to walk through what was in the bill and to listen to any concerns that they might have about it before the public hearing. At the time, the feedback that we received on the department's bill or the Senator Vitale's bill was that it was a moderate proposal. There was not enthusiastic, an embrace of it, but there were no major concerns that were flagged at that point. We did also talk about the fact that the administration, through the governor, had put $294 million into the UI Trust Fund as well, and that we recognized the incredibly important role that unemployment played and that the employers did play in the UI trust fund.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions? Chair recognizes Representative Warren.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being in front of us. Can you say more about this meeting? What led to that meeting happening? Were there other meetings with other constituencies? Why those 4 entities? Is that typical practice? Just could you give me some broader context? I'm sort of new here, so just trying to understand what more about that.
Of course, Representative Warren, it is typical for the department to reach out to stakeholder groups, and those business organizations are the business organizations that we deal with most frequently on unemployment insurance issues. And it seemed appropriate to walk through our proposal with those organizations.
Thank you. Chair,
Can I ask a follow-up question?
you may proceed as long as it is a clarifying and direct question.
Thank you. Did you also have other meetings with other stakeholder groups?
We did also walk through our proposal with worker advocates as well.
The chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you. Once again, Mr. Chair. Do you know about how many years it's been since we've had a major overhaul of the UI system?
Off the top of my head, I don't want to, I can tell who was on the Labor Committee at the point in time, Representative Bradstreet, but I wouldn't swear to the year. It was approximately 20 years ago. Okay. Representative, actually Senator Peter Mills was a leading figure at the time. It was an opportunity for a deep dive into the unemployment insurance system, and changes were made at that point that we have pretty much adhered to since then. As I think I had said before, Maine was one of only a handful of states that had a solvent trust fund after the Great Recession, and also going into this pandemic, we were also one of a handful of states, well, probably about 18 states, that because of how we managed the UI program and the trust fund, were in a pretty solid position. And with the infusion of the $294 million, it kept a good balance there.
Thank you. That answers my question, Mr. Chair. I do have more discussion about it, but I'll defer to other people for the time being, if that's okay.
Yes, that would be appropriate, Representative. We appreciate that very much. Are there any other questions for the Commissioner? The Chair recognizes Senator Guerin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here late on a Friday afternoon, Commissioner. The talk you had with the business advocates, was that more of an informational, informal meeting, or was that like a stakeholders group where you were getting their actual input in what they saw as being appropriate? $134 million a year paid into the uninsurance fund by employers. I'm sure you realize that that is a major investment to business.
It is definitely an impact to business, and it's a lifeline to employees, which is why that balance is incredibly critical, Senator. And we take both of those constituencies very seriously. I think it was an information meeting, but I was definitely open to feedback, and did not at that time hear any major concerns about the proposals that we were putting forward.
The Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater. Representative, you are muted.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, Commissioner. Since we've had this amendment brought forward today, has the business community had a chance to read over the amendment and weigh in on it?
I think as the speaker said, Representative Drinkwater, that amendment came from the speaker's office. So I can't answer that question.
So then, Mr. Chair, if I may switch the question over to our favorite speaker, Speaker Fecto, same question.
The question is, has the business community had a chance to read the amendment?
Thank you, Chairman Hickman. Thank you, Representative Drinkwater, for the question. Well, I can't speak to the entire business community. I'm not sure to what extent I have my tabs on their ability to read and when they have read, but I suspect, given that they have the business community, speaking in general terms, has lobbyists that they pay to be around these committees. I suspect that they've obviously thought out the amendment and had an opportunity to review it. And I think that certainly played out this morning when a member of the business lobby messaged me and communicated a concern about Section 21. And as a result, we had conversations about what the concern was, and the result of the amendment to the amendment regarding Section 21 resulted from that concern being expressed. I have heard no additional concerns expressed from anyone else in the business lobby. And I think I get the sense that there might be division in the committee on this issue, and that's fine if that's where it's going to be. But I think a lot of work has gone into this bill, into the amendment, into the work, the work that was done to consider which items to remove from these two proposals and shift over to the stakeholder group that the department will be convening. And I think if you look at the pieces that are not in these two bills, and I was trying to find my side-by-side comparison of the changes, because there are a series of items that have been moved for a later conversation with stakeholders. To Representative Warren's point, making sure that all folks on all sides of this conversation can have a chance to weigh in, the business community, those representing employees, and so forth. So I look forward to having those discussions, or I look forward to the department convening those discussions on the more on the pieces where there isn't where there wasn't agreement. But at this point, I think we have largely identified and have been able to put our fingers on the things that were not so controversial. Now, you all may decide not to support the bill. That's totally fine. I just think we've reached a point where we've got generally pretty good consensus here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now I see that there are 4 hands raised, and that's all well and good. It's 5:46 on the Friday. We're voting this bill out before we close today. Senator Vitelli is here. This is her bill. I would ask her if she would like to say a few words about this compromise, this negotiation that is in front of us. And I want to remind the committee again, we worked this bill this morning with the amendment in front of us. We took a 25-minute caucus to discuss it. We tabled it. We tried to vote it earlier. We tabled it. There's been plenty of opportunities for members of this committee and the business community who cares to read the amendment. I'm not cranky about it. I just want to make it clear we're voting this bill out today now because it's in front of us to do. And so if you don't want to vote for the bill because you don't like it, don't vote for it. But to question the process whereby this bill is in front of us is starting to get on my nerves, because that's not the point of it. The department, a bill sponsor, can craft a bill without any input from anyone if they choose to. The commissioner has defended her process. The bill sponsors have defended their process. Business input from the community has been a part of this compromise, and we're going to vote this bill out. So if someone has a clarifying question about what's in the bill before they vote, please raise your hand. If it's a question about the process, that's for another discussion. because the process is in front of us right now. This is the process, okay? Can we agree to focus our questions on clarity about what's in the bill and what's in the bill only? Any other question is out of order at this time. Is that clear? The chair recognizes Senator Garin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move that we place the bill in posture to be looked at over the summer by a stakeholder group and report back to the committee next January.
Senator Garin, your motion is out of order. There is a motion on the floor. And it's
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't remember that there was.
Chair recognizes Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, a couple of issues with the bill. I guess that's what we're discussing now. The navigators, for instance, I wonder how that would work if the system itself is not working properly because of a computer glitch or phone glitch or whatever, or that it's just overwhelmed. How will a navigator help that? And because the system would be blocked for them too. And also, if they're able to get through, if a navigator is able to get through, why couldn't a potential recipient get through? So why would we need the navigators? I guess that's the question. I need somebody to answer that for me.
Who are you asking the question to exactly?
Anybody who can answer it, the sponsor, okay.
Does the sponsor wish to answer the question? He's not under any obligation to do so. It's a pilot project. It's been amended to be a pilot project. It's in LD 1564 as a pilot project.
Mr.
Speaker,
Chairman,
so you may answer the question. Oh, Senator Vitelli would like to answer the
can you
question.
hear? Yes,
Yeah, you are breaking quite a bit, but I think we'll give you a try.
sorry about that. I'm parked in a place where I was hoping I could be heard. I would just want to say that the purpose of pilot projects is
Senator
to
Vitelli.
test things out. In my understanding, with what is now, can you hear me? All right, it's
You are
not going to work.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure that we're going to be able to get a complete thought out of you to understand how the pilot project works, but it is a pilot project. And so I want to make that very clear. Speaker Fecto?
Thank you, Chairman Hickman. Thank you, Senator Vitelli, for that admirable attempt. The navigator portion of this bill, of this proposed amendment, came from my original proposed bill. So this was part of the piece that was carried over into Senator Vitelli's version of the UI bill. I think to answer your question, I forget if it was Representative Bradstreet who asked the question. I think the key is one of the challenges folks have is just understanding how to answer the questions that are before them in the UI system. So, for example, you might be the end user trying to file a claim successfully, and the question might be confusing to you, or you're not sure. You're not even sure where to access, where to go to file a claim. I think that's sort of the idea in terms of helping people. A lot of people who are maybe not technologically savvy and figuring out how to get there. I think the other component is making sure that folks who are filing claims or who are accessing unemployment have the ability to get reconnected to employment. So it's not just about helping people file claims. The navigators, as outlined in the bill, the role that they'll also play is connecting workers with training apprenticeships and also getting reconnected to employment. So it's a broader role than just filing claims. And I understand what you're saying, but I think the challenge for folks was, especially as we saw over the last year, getting in touch with the people at DOL was challenging when you have phone lines that are buried for hours on end. So expanding the capacity for folks, for members of the public, for our constituents to get assistance with filing their claims. That's the idea here. It's to expand capacity, especially during peak, when there's peak demand for UI. That the department has some partners out in our communities that can help assist with that. So that's the idea with the navigators. And as Senator Vitelli was saying, it is a pilot. So this is an opportunity to get to see if this is something that is successful and that claimants and unemployed workers and employers find helpful.
Mr. Chair.
You have a follow-up, Representative Bradstreet?
Yeah, okay, thank you for speaking for that. I just want to comment. I think maybe seeking a solution within the department may be the better way to go. That's a matter for a continued discussion if we were going to fully vet this. I also have a concern about some of the extended benefits pertaining to the number of family members the claimant may have. I understand the situation and the dire circumstances they can be put in, but I think the proper solution to that is elsewhere. I don't think that's a responsibility of an employer to pay extra into a system for something over which he has no control. And again, I think these are items that we could discuss to some length. I think would be beneficial for us. I do think we're going a little bit quite hastily on this because it's been 20 years and we're going to hash it out in a few minutes. I don't think that's the way to go. I would much prefer a stakeholder group for the entire bill. So thank you. I will defer to other people now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bradstreet. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. I see two hands raised, clarifying questions or a debate on the merits of the bill. The chair recognizes Representative Warren.
I think the bill as it was presented was very good and important, and I had my reservations this morning. So just a point of clarification with this revised friendly amendment. I wasn't asked whether I continue to second the friendly amendment. I do not. So I don't know if that's I just wanted to put that out there. So this is a process question maybe, but.
No, that's correct. You did not, you did not agree to the friendly amendment. So with that, we have a motion on the floor, ought to pass as amended. As amended. Is there a second to Representative Cuddy's motion? It's seconded by Chairman Sylvester. Thank you, Representative Warren, for that process question. It is absolutely accurate because I could not remember. And so now we know. I appreciate that very much. Chair recognizes Representative Drinkwater. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's end this and vote and get it over with. I would like to call the question, sir.
There is a motion to call the question that requires a vote of the committee. With the committee, if you are ready to call the question, please turn on your videos and raise your hand if you are ready to call the question. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, which is the prevailing vote in the committee. The question will be called. Ms. Breton, if you could please call the roll. The question is ought to pass as amended, made by Representative Cuddy, seconded by Representative Sylvester.
Okay.
The 1564.
1564. Okay. Ought to pass as amended. Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Senator Garin?
Absolutely not. No.
No. Senator Miramont?
Yay.
Senator Miramont, yay. Representative Sylvester?
Yay.
Representative Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet?
No.
Representative Bradstreet, no. Representative Cuddy?
Yes.
Representative Cuddy, yes. Representative Drinkwater?
Nay.
Representative Drinkwater, nay. Representative Gear? It's not here. Representative Morris?
No.
Representative Morris, no. Representative Pebworth?
Yes.
Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott? It's not here. Representative Rader?
Yes.
Representative Rader, yes. Representative Warren?
No.
Representative Warren, no. 6 in the affirmative, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the negative, 2 absent.
6 members voting in affirmative, 5 members voting in the negative, and 2 members absent. The motion prevails. Absent members will have until noon on Monday to cast their vote. I will close the work session on LD.
What would be the minority report?
Yes. Ought not to pass. Is that correct?
No,
Believe
I
we
would like it to be to convene a stakeholders group to report back in January.
And I would like to pass without that friendly amendment at the
Okay.
very least.
We're going to have 2 minority reports at least. So one minority report would be to draft a resolve to convene a stakeholder group to report back when, Senator Guerin?
January.
January 15th? 15th, January 15th, January 1st, January 30th?
January 15th. That sounds good. Thank you.
January 15th it is. And who else is joining that particular report from the 5 who have voted against the motion? Representative Drinkwater will join that report. Representative Bradstreet will join that report. Representative Morris will join that report. And Representative Warren, you want a straight a morning amendment without the friendly amendment. Is that correct?
No, I want the bill as it was presented at the public hearing.
Okay, so with no changes.
So you ought to pass.
Or just ought to pass. Got it.
Okay.
Mr. Langen, are you clear?
I am clear. If I could just clarify on one of the minority reports. So this stakeholder group, is that supposed to be convened by the Department of Labor?
Senator
Yes.
Guerin?
Yes. Okay. Are there any specific members or anything that you wish to include in the resolve? Or we can, this will come back for language review anyway, but.
I think the business advocacy groups I would like represented, and obviously also somebody from the department.
May I suggest something? I don't know if you will agree to this, Senator Guerin, but in the amendment that we just voted on, there is a stakeholder group in that. I don't know if you want it to be the same stakeholder group or a different one, meaning the members that are going to be convened by the department.
I guess I would have to look at who the members were in that, Senator.
Okay, so let's write that into the record that we'll start there so that we're following the process correctly. If that needs to change in any substantive way, we can reconsider when we do the language review and make sure that you get what you want. Mr. Langland, your hand is up.
Yep. It does mention in terms of membership in the majority report that just passed. The commissioner shall appoint members of the working group that include stakeholders from those representing the interest of employers and employees, and shall convene the first meeting no later than September 30th of this year. So something along those lines might be what the report is. Totally up to you guys.
I think that sounds acceptable, and we'll talk about it before language review.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I do believe that Representative Gear has joined us before we have completely closed this vote from her son's graduation. We are working. Representative Gear, we are voting on LD 1564. It's an ought to pass as amended motion. Would you care to cast the vote before I gavel it closed?
Yes, Senator, I vote yes.
So the vote is now 7 members in favor of the motion, 5 members opposed to the motion, and 1 member absent. Thank you, Representative Gear, and I hope that you have had a wonderful, wonderful celebration with your family.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for joining us at the end here. Are you set, Mr. Langley?
I am.
Okay. The motion prevails. I will close the work session on LD 1564. And let's see, it is 6 o'clock. How many more language reviews do you have, Mr. Langland, just so we get a feel for if we want to continue or wait? The sooner we get these done, the quicker they can be reported out.
I have about 4 or 5.
Committee, any objections to seeing some language, or would you like to wait until next Wednesday or send it to us in an email? Okay, great. It looks like there's a lot of no. Let's get out of here. It's Friday. So with that, I will, the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing stands adjourned until Wednesday, probably at 10, but we'll get you the schedule as soon as we have it. Thank you all very much for your patience today, your civility, your contention, the debate. It's what we're here for. Thank you, Ms. Breton, for filling in for Ms. Thompson. Thank you, Ms. Braun, for all of your great research that you have presented to us today, Mr. Langland. You're Superman. And we will see you all next week. Enjoy your weekends, grow some food, and relax.
Thank you. Good night.
Night, y'all.
Yeah.
Good night.